Let's be on Triumph, an Action News special Friday night at 7:30.
Is there. He takes it, and the Orioles are the new world champions.
Sweet bird of ecstasy. The year-long run for redemption is over.
A liner, and the Orioles are the world champions.
Orioles 84, a tradition of triumph. Brought to you in part by National Premium Beer, the pride of Baltimore. And by Provident Bank of Maryland. For you, for now, for the future. And by Giant Food, the people who care.
It's April 15th, 1954. And after a 51-year absence, Big League Baseball returns to Baltimore. Mayor Tommy D'Alessandro and hundreds of thousands of others welcome the Birds home with the biggest parade in the city's history. Then it's on to Memorial Stadium, still under construction, but nonetheless decked out to receive the more than 46,000 fans lucky enough to hold tickets. Vice President Richard Nixon throws out the first ball. And now it's time to get down to business.
Play ball.
Oriole catcher Clint Scrap Iron Courtney gains the distinction of hitting the first home run in the new ballpark at the expense of White Sox hurler Virgil Trucks. Third baseman Vern Stevens connects in the fourth for another Oriole home run. And big Bob Turley strikes out Minnie Minoso as the Orioles beat the White Sox 3-1 in the first Major League game in Baltimore in more than a half a century.
Oh, I remember that opener in 1954. Had a big parade. It was kind of chilly. Then when the Orioles took the field, the sun came out. Turley against Trucks. We beat the White Sox. But we went on to lose 100 games that year. We lose 14 in a row at one stretch, which is a kind of a dubious record that still stands, you know.
Yes, but by 1957, the Orioles had reached 500.
Yep.
And over the last 28 years, their one-lost record is better than any other major league team, including the Dodgers and the Yankees, who have such a storied past.
Well, this is the 30th anniversary of the Orioles' return to the big leagues. They won 7 divisional championships, 6 pennants, and they won the World Series 3 times. In the next half hour, we're going to take a look at some of the great moments of the past and see what 1984 has for us.
Well, you know, Vince, the hallmark of the Orioles' success has been to take role players who accept the idea of being platoon and then go on to be successful. And that's most evident in the 1984 Orioles outfield.
Right.
I think because of the way our setup is in the outfield, that nobody will have to play that many ball games, and I don't believe that they'll get tired physically, and I don't think they'll have the mental strain that an everyday ball player might have. Our outfield picture looks very good.
In fact, Baltimore's outfield is a classic case of Major League time sharing. No fewer than 5 Orioles played at least 100 games in the outfield last season, and 1 or 2 others may see as much action this year. The reason?
Well, quite simple. It's personnel. I mean, how else can you answer the question? You don't throw bodies in there just because you're platooning. You have to have the personnel that's able to handle the situations as they arise. Once you accumulate that kind of talent, then obviously you're going to be more successful.
John certainly can speak with authority since he is part of possibly the most successfully platoon position in baseball, Baltimore's left field. On his own, Lowenstein racked up 15 home runs and 60 runs batted in to go along with a .281 batting average. But Gary Renicky was no slouch in left either, adding 19 homers and 64 RBI. So while these two individually were very productive, as a tandem they were spectacular. In fact, the Baltimore left field had a year worthy of MVP consideration.
And sharing center field duties this year again will be Al Bunbury, who last year bounced back from knee problems the previous season. And switch-hitting John T-Bone Shelby, whose speed and strong arm make him an important defensive asset. In right field, Dan Ford enjoyed one of his best career seasons last year after a nightmare in 1982. And Jim Dwyer also figures to see a lot of time in right again this year, particularly in Memorial Stadium, where he has historically hit very well. On most other ball clubs, players might chafe at the idea of not playing every day. But the Orioles enjoy winning too much to complain.
The platooning system last year was very effective for us, and it kind of took us all the way. So I don't know. I have no gripes about it.
It doesn't bother me now. We got outfielders that's going to play, and everybody's pretty much going to play, and I just accept that.
It's just a matter of, the Warriors preparing themselves, for the future, so to speak. That's all, and I'm realistic about the situation and realizing that's the way they plan to play it. I mean, I have a choice of accepting that or not, and I chose to accept it, that's all.
It's tough, but we know that's what Joe's going to do, and that's how we win, and if you're going to throw away a world championship, possibly a chance of making the world championship and being an everyday player, I'd much rather stay here.
The logjam in the outfield has made Ken Singleton, once the team's regular right fielder, into the O's full-time designated hitter. Last year, Ken bounced back from injury with one of his best years ever. And these numbers are even more impressive when you consider that Ken was hitting 6th in the lineup, which meant that pitchers could afford to be cautious with him in order to get to weaker hitters in the bottom of the order. Of course, being a KG veteran, Ken can also be counted on for some unusual strategy now and then.
I got a home run off this guy last year. I'm going to try and go up there and look real small. Maybe he won't remember me.
No, he'll remember me.
And with the departure of Tito Landrum, Benny Ayala, who always seems to come up with the big hits coming off the bench, figures to see more time in the outfield now. And Mike Young, who'll be starting the season in Rochester, knows it's only a matter of time before he's in the big leagues to stay.
I think I still have a long way to go. I'm 23, and I've been with this organization for, I think, going into my 5th year this year, so I am a patient person.
And, of course, with all these cards to play, Joe Alabelli has the flexibility to make a lot of moves in any ball game.
That's true, Vince, and one of the major moves they made during the offseason was designed to give the pitching staff more versatility, and we'll see why when we come back.
The 1966 World Series matches the LA Dodgers against the Baltimore Orioles, appearing in their first series ever. Managers Hank Bauer and Walter Alston exchanged pleasantries before the first game. The Orioles are heavy underdogs, but are not at all intimidated as Frank Robinson, who won the Triple Crown in this his first year with the Orioles, reaches Don Drysdale for a 2-run homer. Brooks Robinson follows with a solo blast as the Orioles win the opener 5-2. The second game matches the great Sandy Koufax against the young Jim Palmer. But it's the Dodgers who are rattled as Willie Davis commits a record 3 errors in 1 inning. And Jim Palmer, only 20 years old, shuts out the Dodgers 6-0. Back in Baltimore for the third game, O's center fielder Paul Blair supplies the only run with this homer to left. And Wally Bunker, who didn't pitch a shutout all year, gets one today to give the Orioles the win. In Game 4, Frank Robinson hits a towering blast to give the Birds a 1-run lead. And great defensive play by Brooks Robinson and Paul Blair helped Dave McNally hold on as the Orioles win their first World Series in 4 straight games.
One of the most stunning upsets in World Series history. The O's not only beat the Dodgers 4 in a row, but the Orioles pitching shut the Dodgers out for 39 scoreless innings.
And really beat them at their own game. They had Drysdale, they had Koufax. I mean, great pitching. But that was no accident. I mean, maybe it was the beginning of what the Orioles have always stressed, acquire and cultivate outstanding pitching. And again, a bumper crop for 84.
I'm really optimistic. Everybody's healthy right now, and if we can keep them healthy end of the year, I'd like one time to see what the staff would do if it went all year without any major injuries.
The reigning ace is Scott McGregor, who led the Orioles in wins last year and has the best winning percentage in baseball over the last 5 years. But the lefty will be the first to admit that he doesn't overpower anyone. His strength is control and being observant.
Being a pitcher, I know hitters mostly by their feet. When I see them get in the batter's box, I see where their feet are, and I know what they're looking for a lot of times. You can watch a hitter's feet more than anything else, and they make adjustments. They'll close their feet up, or they'll open their feet up, or, and there's always little things that you're looking at, and that's the kind of stuff that keeps you around, I guess.
Mike Boddicker reminds a lot of people of a right-handed Scott McGregor. He relies on control and an assortment of breaking pitches with more speeds than a tractor-trailer. Even though he didn't join the Birds until May of last season, Mike led the league with 5 shutouts. His 16 wins were second highest on the club, and his ERA was second lowest in the league. He was the MVP in the playoffs after shutting out the White Sox with a record 14 strikeouts, and he didn't allow an earned run in beating the Phillies in Game 2 of the World Series. You'd think that after a performance like that in his first year, Mike would feel a lot of pressure this season, right?
Not really. There's less pressure, really, as far as spring training goes, because years before I kept coming in thinking I had to impress somebody, trying to make the team. And this year, it's easy. I can go about my work and get my stuff done that needs to be done, and
get a lot more innings in, so it really is making it a lot easier.
Another youngster who came through in the clutch for the Orioles last season, Storm Davis. Like Boddicker, Storm was pressed into the rotation when injuries plagued the staff. But he, too, responded magnificently, leading the team in strikeouts and winning Game 4 of the World Series.
Of course, the reason the young Oriole pitchers got a chance to succeed last year was because of the disabilities of some of the stalwarts. Mike Flanagan was sailing along with 6 straight wins at the beginning of the year when disaster struck as he fielded this ground ball. Although he was out for almost 3 months, Mike came back to log 6 more wins for the O's during the stretch run, and he added another during the league championship. He'll continue to wear a brace, although his knee has recovered.
Now, last year was a disaster for Dennis Martinez, both on and off the field. But there's certainly reason to think that things will improve for him. Dennis is a proven winner with 14 or more wins in 5 of his 6 seasons prior to '83. But more importantly, during the offseason, Dennis successfully confronted his alcoholism problem and came to camp armed with a new attitude and anxious to do whatever he can to help the club.
Injuries limited Jim Palmer to just 14 appearances last season, and his ERA was the worst of his career. But the only man to play on all 3 Baltimore World Championship teams says he feels better this spring than he has in the last few years. And even though he's virtually guaranteed a ticket to Cooperstown, he needs only 32 more wins to reach 300. Jim admits this season is pivotal.
Well, this is a very important year as far as winning 300 ball games. I meant that sincerely when I said early in the season that I plan on really dictating how many years I'm going to play based on this year. If I do not have a good year, if I'm not healthy, I don't want to burden anybody with my miseries.
The newest Oriole hurler is Tom Underwood, a left-hander who will be used primarily in long relief. But Tom is willing to accept any role in which he's cast.
I'm the type of pitcher, when they put me in the bullpen, it just means relief to me, and so it doesn't make any difference to me if they tell me I'm going to be used early in the game, late in the game. I just prepare myself accordingly, and if I can spot start, maybe get a few starts during the season, that's fine too.
The addition of Underwood will give the Orioles much more balance in the bullpen and means that Sammy Stewart will be free to concentrate on short relief, a role he relishes. But it doesn't necessarily mean fewer innings for Tippy.
And we've had to use Tippy not only as a #1 short man, but also as what we call a deke in the bullpen early in the game to stop the other manager from doing things. So having another left-hander out there will reduce his role of warming up in the bullpen, but we certainly plan not to reduce his time on the mound.
Certainly it's in the Orioles' best interest to have Tippy on the mound. Despite missing 3 weeks with appendicitis, Tippy enjoyed his best year ever last season, setting personal bests in saves, strikeouts, and ERA.
Maybe the best measure of how good this staff is are the pitchers who didn't make it. Alan Ramirez won 4 big games for the O's last season. Dan Moriggiello had a 2.39 ERA in almost 40 innings of work for the O's. But the man to watch in Rochester this year may be Bill Swaggerty. He stopped a 7-game losing streak for the O's in Chicago last summer and has opened a lot of eyes in Miami this spring. He could get the nod if one of the front 9 falters.
He's had an outstanding spring, and to this point, he's been working and just mowing people down. So we're setting him up right now, just like one of our starters. He'll be with us right to the wire, and we're going to have him prepared. If at the last minute anybody come up lame, God forbid, he would be able to step in and go right with the program.
Joe's going to need a 10th pitcher somewhere around the middle of May, just like when Mike came up last year. And I just hope that when he looks down on his paper or thinks about it, I'm the first one that pops in his head. And I'd like to be that one.
You know, Vince, with all that proven talent waiting in Rochester, the Orioles won't wait very long to bring somebody down if somebody in Baltimore falters.
One thing the fans have always been able to count on, good pitching. One thing we haven't been able to count on lately, though, is who's the third baseman. And we'll try to unravel that mystery when we come back.
The 1970 World Series pits the Cincinnati's Big Red Machine against the Baltimore Orioles, winners of 2 straight American League pennants under manager Earl Weaver. Home runs by Boog Powell and Ellie Hendricks erase a Cincinnati lead. And then Brooks Robinson gives the Reds a taste of things to come, robbing Lee May on this impossible play. Later, with the score tied, maybe the weirdest play in series history. Bernie Carbo called out at the plate even though the play is behind the umpire, and Hendricks applies the tag with the ball in the wrong hand. The Birds go on to win the game on Brooksy's homer. In Game 2, the Reds hold an early 4-run lead when Brooks again closes the door, turning this shot by Lee May into a double play. The Birds then hang a 5-run inning on the board to win the game. The series moves to Baltimore for the 3rd game, with Brooks prodding the Birds an early lead with a bases-loaded double and protecting it with plays like this. The big blow of the game belongs to Dave McNally, the first and only Grand Slam home run ever hit by a pitcher in a World Series game. In the fifth game, the power of Frank Robinson and Paul Blair proved too much for the Reds, and number 5 makes the final play, giving the Orioles their second World's Championship.
Well, Chris, I never saw a guy dominate a World Series the way Brooks did in 1970. I mean, he ate up everything the Big Red Machine hit at him, and he hit the ball to safe spots almost every time up, it seemed.
Well, not only that, the rest of the country got to see what we already knew, that he was a great, great third baseman. But since he retired, 6 seasons, we've had 4 different starters at third base.
We had Doug DeCinces, we had Cal Ripken, we had Leo Hernandez, we even had Eddie Murray for a while.
Eddie Murray. And we're going to have a 5th brand-new starter at third base this time.
We'd like to beef up our run production, our RBIs, our home runs out of that position. And it's possible with Gross hitting maybe 20 home runs or more, and Todd chipping in with 10 or 15 of his own, that we could have a very productive year defensively and offensively out of that position.
Ever since Brooks vacated third base, the Birds have gone through tenants the way George Steinbrenner goes through managers. Now it appears the team has abandoned the search for a permanent resident and instead will lease the position to a pair of platoon players. Wayne Gross, acquired during the offseason, figures to start against right-handers and is looking forward to a peaceful and productive part-time year.
Well, there's really not that much competition. We each have our job. Todd's going to start against left-handed pitchers. I'll start against right-handed pitchers. And they change pitchers during the game. We'll adjust, whether, according to the score, however Joe wants to do it.
However, Todd Cruz, the Orioles' regular third baseman for the second half of last season, isn't exactly crazy about sharing the position.
That's the way it looks so far, but I guess it's up to me to hit the ball like I have been doing so far, and maybe I'll win the job, because I think my defense overall during the year will be a big plus for the team, throughout the season.
Todd does have one of the strongest arms in the game, but last year his bat was weak. A new stance, though, has turned him into one of the club's leading hitters this spring. And if his bat stays hot, it may be tough to get him out of the lineup.
Second base is another spot the Orioles would like to see become more productive. Rich Dower's average dropped 45 points last year, but he should rebound and provide solid defense along with Len's sudden death Sakata, who's gaining a reputation for his late-inning heroics. Now, if you're looking for the heart of this team, look behind the plate. Rick Dempsey means more to this club, indeed to the city, than statistics could ever describe. His pugnacious brand of play, his refusal to quit, are what Oriole baseball has come to mean. Small wonder, then, that he was given a hero's welcome after he was named the MVP in the World Series last October. The Orioles again will enjoy the luxury of having the left-handed hitting Joe Nolan to spell Rick behind the plate and to pinch hit.
But despite the Orioles' extensive platooning all around the diamond, there are 2 names you can expect to see in the lineup every day. 2 names that strike terror in the hearts of enemy pitchers, Ripken and Murray. All Ripken did last year was lead the league in more batting stats than there are days of the week, play every inning of every game, and lead all major league shortstops in assists and double plays.
We don't really want Cal to improve. We just want him to have the same type of year he had last year.
After winning Rookie of the Year and MVP honors in his first 2 seasons, it's hard to predict what Cal might have in store this year.
And on the other hand, it's easy to predict what kind of a year Eddie Murray will have. For the last 7 years, Eddie's been Baltimore's most reliable performer, and every year you can just about count on 30 or so homers, 100 RBIs, and a 300 batting average. And for the last 2 years, you can also throw in a gold glove for his play at first base. And although Eddie finished second to Ripken in the league MVP voting last year, he and Cal shared the most valuable Oriole award, making Eddie and Brooks Robinson the only 2 Birds to win that award 4 times. It's no wonder, then, that manager Altobelli waxes poetic at the prospect of writing Ripken and Murray into the lineup every day.
It's the closest thing to heaven that I ever thought.
Well, Chris, how many managers you think dream about being able to pencil those 2 names in the lineup every day?
It's hard to imagine the Orioles ever being out of pennant contention as long as Rip and Eddie are in the infield and playing every day.
That's almost a frightening thought, isn't it?
That's right, and we'll hear from the Orioles about what they think about 1984 when we return.
Game 1 of the 1983 World Series belongs to Philadelphia thanks to home runs by Joe Morgan and Gary Maddox. In Game 2, a 1-run Philly lead is erased as John Lowenstein homers over the center field fence. Rick Dempsey doubles in the game-winning run, and Mike Boddicker strikes out Mike Schmidt to even the series at a game apiece. In Philadelphia for the 3rd game, the Birds are behind by 2 when Dan Ford cuts the lead in half, and Benny Ayala ties the game with this pinch single off the legendary Steve Carlton. Then Benny scores the winning run when Ivan De Jesus can't handle this smash off the bat of Dan Ford. Young Storm Davis starts Game 4 by striking out Morgan, Rose, and Schmidt in the first inning. Rich Dowers' bases-loaded single gives the O's an early lead, but the game is tied again in the 6th when John Shelby's long fly ball delivers Dower with a game winner, despite a spectacular catch by Gary Matthews. In the 5th game, Eddie Murray silences his critics with a second-inning home run. Series MVP Rick Dempsey adds another in the next inning, and then it's Murray again with a vengeance. Scott McGregor goes the distance for the Birds as they win their 3rd World's Championship.
Unbelievable start for Joe in his first year as Orioles manager. I don't know what he can do for an encore.
It's the same club, pretty much the same club as we had last year. We made a few changes, can only improve the club.
Certainly, as Joe Altobelli surveys his world champions, he can see a team with no glaring weaknesses. But there were some areas of vulnerability last year that are worth keeping an eye on as the Birds defend their championship. For instance, last year, Orioles pinch hitters finished dead last in the American League, and they'd certainly like to improve on that performance. The Birds' record in overtime and one-run games was only so-so and could be an important factor in a pennant race. Likewise, the Orioles had losing records against half the clubs they'll be battling for the Eastern Divisional crown this year. So they'd like to turn that around, too.
Still, you can't argue with success, and the Orioles themselves don't seem to have any doubts about their ability to win it all again.
We get off to a decent start again, and if we go into September with any type of a lead or right near the top, I think the rest of them can forget it.
There are some tough teams in the league, of course, but there was last year. So we basically got the same ball club and the same enthusiasm we had last year. We're having the same kind of fun, so I can't see why not.
I don't think we have anybody that's going to sit back on their laurels and take it easy and think that we're just going to breeze through our division. As it was too tough to get where we are, we're not going to give it up easy.
You're still hungry to go after it.
No doubt about it. This is my game. I love it.
Well, Vince, they sound like an optimistic group to me. What do you think about the club?
I hope they're still hungry because they've had a lot of success, a lot of them, a lot of money. I worry about the Tigers, but I think we can win it again.
Well, they say it's very tough to repeat a championship, but I like the blend on this team between the solid veterans and the youthful guys coming on, and I think that'll carry them through. I think they're going to win it all again in 1984. How about that? I'm Chris Thomas.
And I'm Vince Bagley, and it's been a pleasure.
Orioles 84, a tradition of triumph, has been brought to you in part by Giant Food, the people who care, and by Provident Bank of Maryland, for you, for now, for the future, and by National Premium Beer, the pride of Baltimore.